A top name in AEW reportedly left Dynamite this week in a bad mood due to the ongoing backstage issues within the company after CM Punk's return to All Elite Wrestling and the Elite's issues with the former AEW World Champion. Details on that, plus AEW All In hits another big milestone when it comes to ticket sales, and general records aren't far away for the event. Details on that, and Bryan Danielson is reportedly working pretty banged up right now, hence why he's had a reduced in-ring schedule recently. We've got the ratings for this Wednesday's episode of AEW Dynamite, of course the go-home episode prior to Forbidden Door this Sunday. Senior Vice President of AEW talks about AEW Fight Forever ahead of the game's release next week. Mark Henry discusses his backstage role in AEW and if we could ever see a retirement match for the world's strongest man inside of an AEW ring. Samoa Joe is presented with a brand new Ring of Honor World Television Championship. The Dark Order's feud with the Righteous continues on ROH television, and Rush and Bandido have been called out by AAA's Conan for, quote, abusing their power. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about the backstage dynamic, the backstage morale, the backstage issues currently that are ongoing, continue to be ongoing in All Elite Wrestling. Reportedly, a top AEW name has described the situation in the locker room as a, quote, ticking time bomb following the return of former two-time AEW World Champion CM Punk. Despite CM Punk only being 1 week into his AEW return, there are serious doubts behind the scenes about whether the company's current approach of keeping Punk and the Elite apart is sustainable in the long term. In this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer revealed that a, quote, top name in AEW walked away from Dynamite in a, quote, bad mood about the entire situation. Meltzer writes, quote, but one top name noted to us that they went home after the show on Wednesday in a bad mood, and even with the key people kept apart and not on the same shows, described the fear of this being a ticking time bomb that will not have a happy ending. Despite the initial belief upon Punk's return being that he would be a Collision star while the Elite remained on Dynamite, this has already been proven not to be a 100% strict rule, as Punk, of course, was on this past Wednesday show. Of course, that may have just been an exception to the rule due to it taking place in Punk's hometown of Chicago. Of course, this Sunday at Forbidden Door, all of the parties will be under the same roof for the first time since All Out and the brawl that happened regarding CM Punk, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Ace Steel, as well as CM Punk being under the same roof as Hangman Adam Page too. Now, the Elite this week on Dynamite, on the other hand, were not in attendance, instead only appearing in a backstage segment with Eddie Kingston that was taped a week prior. Kingston was there this week and appeared in front of the live crowd. Punk went on to record on record in last week's interview with ESPN saying that he had attempted to contact members of the Elite after All Out, but the response was letters from lawyers and attorneys telling him not to. Since then, the two sides haven't had any kind of interaction with each other. Meltzer reported earlier this week that some of Punk's comments in the ESPN interview and his promo on Collision has made the, quote, divisiveness within AEW worse than it previously was. Despite AEW's best efforts to keep them apart, the two parties, as I mentioned, will be in the same place at the same time for this Sunday's June 25th Forbidden Door pay-per-view at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Despite reports suggesting that a match with Kenta was in the pipeline for Forbidden Door, Punk will instead face off against veteran New Japan star Satoshi Kojima in the opening round of the Owen Hart men's tournament at the event. It was reportedly Kenta who rejected a match with Punk and not the other way around. As for the Elite this weekend, the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page will team with Tomohiro Ishii and Eddie Kingston to take on Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio Castagnoli, plus Konosuke Takeshita and Shota Umino. Elsewhere in the co-main event of that night, of course, along with Bryan Danielson versus Kazuchika Okada, Kenny Omega will be defending his IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship against Will Ospreay in a rematch from Wrestle Kingdom 17 earlier this year. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to the latest developments regarding CM Punk and the Elite? Do you agree with this anonymous AEW source that it is a ticking time bomb with CM Punk and the Elite? Can AEW and Tony Khan successfully keep the parties apart? Can we have Punk just being on Collision and the Elite just being on AEW Dynamite? Is there going to be issues like at pay-per-views this coming weekend? And what are your thoughts on names leaving the tapings of AEW Dynamite in a bad mood due to these backstage issues? What are your thoughts on all of the drama right now in AEW? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Now let's talk about AEW All In. Of course, that's getting closer and closer this summer at London's Wembley Stadium. With AEW's history making All In only 2 months away, Wembley Stadium's show has hit another major milestone. It goes without saying, but AEW's first ever overseas event has surpassed almost everybody's wildest expectations, with over 65,000 tickets sold and almost tripling the company's previous attendance records. The ambitious event has recently gotten even bigger as AEW announced that more seating was made available, and at the rate it's currently going, it does have the potential to break records. It's certainly within the grasp of AEW. In this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer gave the latest on All In success, writing, quote, "All In at press time is at about 66,500 paid and about $8.35 million at Wembley Stadium. It is now the largest paid attendance for a pro wrestling show since WrestleMania in 2016, which is the all-time record and would be difficult for the show to break, but not impossible. The potential of besting a long-standing WWE record would be a massive feather in AEW's cap and something Tony Khan would undoubtedly be very proud of. While no matches have yet been announced for the August 27 show, Tony Khan did tease that this Sunday's Forbidden Door pay-per-view could potentially lead into something historic in London. Of course, what that is, we'll have to wait and see. But what are your thoughts on the latest numbers of the ticket sales and the gate for AEW All In at London's Wembley Stadium? And how much do you think they're actually going to do? How many people will eventually get into that stadium? Do you think they can break the record set by WWE for WrestleMania 32 in 2016? Bryan Danielson will be in the main event of Forbidden Door this Sunday, but the eagle-eyed viewer may have noticed that Bryan Danielson hasn't been working many matches over the last several months, and there's an important reason behind that. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, you may have noticed Bryan Danielson has had a very limited in-ring schedule throughout 2023, and as I mentioned, there's a good reason for that. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, they have learned that Bryan Danielson has been, quote, banged up of late, and there were some spots limited in his AEW Double or Nothing 2023 Anarchy in the Arena match as a result. Prior to that match, Danielson actually hadn't worked since the 60-minute Iron Man match main event for the AEW World Championship against MJF at AEW Revolution in March. Danielson has instead worked commentary for the Blackpool Combat Club matches, while largely avoiding contact in the many brawls that have happened during that time. Danielson has also been heavily involved in creative in the first several weeks of AEW Collision, so it would appear that maybe he's not going into the match this Sunday at 100%. Not to say the match isn't going to be good, but certainly coming out of Forbidden Door, don't be surprised as well if Bryan Danielson isn't working as many matches or continues the current rate of working not many matches on AEW television. But hopefully he recovers and AEW gives him the amount of time he needs to not be so banged up as he is right now. Now, speaking of Bryan Danielson and Kazuchika Okada, of course, that was the closing scene. You can see it right on the screen now on AEW Dynamite this week. And with this week's episode of AEW Dynamite, not just being the go-home show for Forbidden Door, but also the first episode since both CM Punk's return and the season finale of the top non-sports competitor Vanderpump Rules, the Nelson ratings for this week's show are certainly going to be very, very interesting. So the question is, how did it do? Well, according to reporting from the Pro Wrestling Torch, as well as WrestleNomics on both their Twitter and Patreon pages, the June 21st Dynamite averaged 902,000 viewers overall across its 2 hours on TBS, which is up 8% from the prior week. Approximately 436,000 of which were in the key demographic most valued by advertisers, adults aged 18 to 49, which is up 11% from the week prior to. The latter figure translates to a 0.33 rating in the 18 to 49, which is identical to that of the debut of AEW Collision this past Saturday night. That key demographic rating is the highest for Dynamite in 4 months, going back to the February 22 episode. Meanwhile, as of this recording, Showbuzz Daily's rankings ratings of Wednesday's cable originals have not been yet published, but Dynamite, which ranked third last week, is expected to be near or at the top of the list thanks to the end of Vanderpump Rules on Bravo. For a more extensive picture, the WrestleNomics Patreon page tracks how Dynamite did in various demographics in relation to the median of the prior 4 weeks' numbers. By that metric, most of the movement in either direction was within Nielsen's stated 10% margin of error. There were 2 exceptions, both of which were good news for AEW. Women aged 35 to 49 were up 16% over the median, while men in the same age group were also up 16% as well. So still under 1 million viewers, but better numbers heading into Forbidden Door. And I guess a lot of people now are going to be turning their attention to Saturday's AEW Collision and questioning, how well is it going to do? Is it going to deliver a better number than last week, a worse number? What's the key demographic going to look like as well? Certainly we'll have that covered once that information does come out. Next week, AEW Fight Forever is finally going to be released. We're actually going to be streaming it live here on the channel, doing a lot of gameplay stuff. And an AEW SVP, a senior vice president, has discussed investing in game franchises if AEW Fight Forever does well. As I mentioned, on June 29, AEW Fight Forever will be released, marking All Elite Wrestling's first venture into the world of console gaming. As previously reported, Fightful Select noted that the original plan for the upcoming video game is to be a one-off release with constant updates and DLC as opposed to a repeat yearly release. Speaking with SE Scoops, AEW Senior Vice President of Business Development, Partnerships and Video Games, Nick Sobik, admitted that if AEW Fight Forever does well, they could further invest in the franchise. He said, quote, "I've worked at AEW and known Tony Khan for the last 10 years. I can pretty much tell you he is one of the most generous people I have ever met. I can tell you if this video game does well, we're going to take those dollars and put that into an AEW video game franchise. Fans speak with their wallets." So the question is it going to do well or not? As I mentioned, we are going to be streaming it here on the channel. We're going to be playing it. We're going to be doing online stuff. We're going to be doing season, career, whatever you want to call it, mode, and all that fun stuff on there. You're going to watch me, a terrible gamer, try and play Fight Forever. So that's coming next week. It's all set up and ready to go, and I'm really excited for you to join me as I play AEW Fight Forever, and you can all laugh at me how terrible I am. Mark Henry is a backstage figure in AEW right now, and he's spoken about his current backstage role as well as a possible future inside of an AEW ring. WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry has provided some clarification on his AEW role and what AEW coaches actually do. When Henry was signed with AEW in May of 2021, the wrestling veteran was touted as a commentator for the new Rampage brand, in addition to his coaching role. While many believe that this role is the AEW analog of a WWE backstage producer, Mark Henry has stated that he doesn't actually produce matches. Speaking on Insight with Chris Van Vliet, Henry stated that his job is to speak with talent about their characters and to help stars improve their personas. Naming Orange Cassidy and powerhouse Will Hobbs as 2 stars he loves to work with, Henry said, quote, "I do a lot of their psychology. I'm considered a coach, but I don't do the matches. I don't produce the matches that you see on TV. I go to each individual guy. I talk to them about their personas. I talk to them about their character. And hey, man, I think if you change this, you can try this differently. You know, so we go back and forth. There are some people that listen better than others, and you can see the development of those people. I love working with Orange Cassidy. I love talking to him. He's a sponge. He's smart as hell, and he wants to be great. And I like passion. I like people that's like, man, they got me on 5th. It's going to suck for everybody that's going on after me. I'm like, shit, let's go. I love it. I love people like that, man. Orange Cassidy is like that, man. Will Hobbs, man. Golly. Now, explaining how his AEW deal came to be, he said, quote, "I talked to Tony Khan, and you know, Tony is a big fan of wrestling. We talked, and he asked me why I wasn't wrestling. I said, man, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm old. He laughed and was like, I want to be more on the executive side. I want to be able to help build the business. He said, man, don't tease me. I said, tease you how? He was like, would you come to AEW? I was like, hell yeah, I'll come to AEW if you hire me on the executive side and get me to help the talent. He was like, man, I'm going to have my legal call you today. That's how it happened in one day. It was not like I knew that I was going to talk to Tony Khan. Who knew I was going to run into a billionaire wrestling company owner? I didn't know that. So Mark Henry saying it kind of just happened and was a bit of a coincidence. Now, as far as a retirement match, he did admit that he had given it some thought. He said, quote, "You know what? I've thought about it, and every time I think about it, I think who would be the person? I guess you could put up a poll someday and say, who would you like to see Mark Henry have his last match against? You better have to do it fast, because every day I wake up, I'm thinking I might just have to go put that to bed." Henry continued when asked about whether that match would take place in AEW. He said, "You know what? I have to think about it. and I would have to start training and see how my body feels. I haven't taken a bump in years. I'd be open to a conversation. Now, actually, his last official match came on April 27, 2018 in WWE's 50-man Greatest Royal Rumble match from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, with his final one-on-one match coming over a year prior when he lost to Braun Strowman on Raw in February 2017. So he would be open, he said, to a retirement match. Is that something you'd be open to seeing? Let me know your thoughts about that. Samoa Joe, people forget that he's the current Ring of Honor World Television Champion, and he's now got a brand new championship bout. Samoa Joe has been awarded the new Ring of Honor World Television Championship bout on the April 13, 2022 episode of AEW Dynamite. Samoa Joe defeated Minoru Suzuki to win Ring of Honor World Television Championship Gold. For the past 434 days, Joe has beaten the likes of Jay Lethal, Christopher Daniels, Matt Sydal, and Mark Briscoe. He is now the third longest reigning champion in the title's history. To start the June 22nd edition of Ring of Honor TV on Honor Club, footage of Tony Khan alongside his Ring of Honor board of directors, Stokely Hathaway and Jerry Lynn, awarded Samoa Joe with a brand new Ring of Honor World TV title bout from last Saturday's AEW Collision premiere. The bout is more in line with the current upgraded designs that debuted for the Ring of Honor World Championship and Women's World Championship earlier this year. After being gifted the bout, Joe told Tony Khan that he would break his boy's face later in the night. This reference to CM Punk, of course, who Joe was opposite in the six-man tag team main event for Collision. Punk and FTR defeated Samoa Joe, Jay White and Juice Robinson on the June 17 edition of AEW Collision. Both Punk and Joe will be competing in the Owen Hart men's tournament. Of course, if they win their first round matches, they could be set to face off in the semi-final, so we could be getting that Samoa Joe versus CM Punk match very, very soon. Keeping with Ring of Honor TV, a feud between two factions on ROH TV has continued. A Ring of Honor feud has continued to heat up with one fan-favorite faction from All Elite Wrestling, with AEW continuing to expand, now including weekly television for Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. Fans are looking forward to some of their forgotten favorites featuring more heavily on television. One fan-favorite faction, the Dark Order, has seen their recent Ring of Honor feud heating up over the past few weeks, with the most direct challenge yet coming on last night's edition of Ring of Honor television. While last summer the Righteous may have been rumoured to be WWE bound to join a faction with Bray Wyatt, however, that simply was not the case and did not happen. Quite the opposite, as the Righteous, Vincent and Dutch, have recently been appearing in Ring of Honor and have recruited former Dark Order member Stu Grayson. While Dark Order has seen their numbers dwindling, Alex Reynolds, Evil Uno, and John Silver persist on and have been facing a frightening challenge. With Grayson now running with the Righteous, they are clearly keeping an eye on the Dark Order, appearing on screen after Reynolds and Silver had a match on last night's edition of Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Congratulating them on their display of aggression, Vincent challenged the pair to continue to show it next week. So I guess we're building up to a Dark Order versus Righteous match in the future. Do you even watch Ring of Honor television? Let me know if you're still paying attention to that show on Honor Club. Finally, there's been a lot of controversy recently regarding Rush and Bandido in AAA, and now we've got a bit more of controversy surrounding them, it must be said, at least from the AAA side of things. Conan has called out AEW stars Bandido and Rush for abusing their power ahead of AAA Triple Mania 31 in Tijuana. Both Bandido and Rush appear to have cut ties with the Lucha Libre AAA promotion. Conan previously stated he would no longer book Bandido if the Luchador worked the June 2nd Crash Lucha Libre show, which of course he did. Rush announced his AAA departure on June 10, stating that he and his father, La Bestia del Ring, have left the promotion. Speaking on his K100 podcast, Conan argued that a lot of the wrestlers get a big head after they find success in the US. Commenting on the Bandido situation, Conan said, quote, Bandido had the very bad habit, which I find very unprofessional, of every time I'm looking for him for work, he doesn't answer the effing phone. Like I'm doing him the favor. I'm not going to hunt you down to get you to work. He did that when he was in Ring of Honor too. A lot of these wrestlers, they go to the United States, get a big head, and then they start charging with their ego, not what the market can support. They don't give an F because they're in the United States, but when Ring of Honor closed, oh, there they were looking for work. What happens in AEW if they cut you or you get injured or something happens? I'm not going to effing forget. Calling out Rush for being unprofessional, Conan stated, quote, Rush was mad because we weren't using him enough. But one of the things is they had a feud. It was against the Dynamite Brothers. Now, one of the Dynamite Brothers is the guy and that they put in jail for supposedly choking that girl wrestler. So it's very hard to do anything because that guy's in jail. I thought he was going to get out quick, so I was waiting for him to get out, so I wasn't getting them work. Plus, Roosh, bro, he charges like a lot of effing money, and it's like, bro, you're not in the United States. I have a budget, and when I put you on the show, you eat a quarter of my effing thing. I'd rather bring in 2 or 3 other wrestlers. I thought what he did was very unprofessional, and I also had another wrestler try and pull that shit with me too, not too recently, and I'm not going to forget that either. But you know, they get power, they're in the United States, and they abuse their effing power, and they do shit like this. Man, Conan not happy. As far as Roosh goes, he last wrestled for AEW on the May 24 Rampage taping. Following previous reports that Roosh's absence was due to visa issues, it was reported that he is believed that his AEW deal is up soon. As of this recording, Roosh still has a profile on the official AEW roster page. Bandido recently confirmed that he actually suffered a broken wrist in his match against Konosuke Takeshita on the June 14 Rampage taping. So Conan certainly not happy with both Roosh and Bandido. But there you go, guys. It's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.